This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media interview. It's not just this generation. Politics have always been dirty, nasty, bare-knuckle affairs. In the American two-party system, one side always blames the other for whatever ails the country. The new twist in the 21st century is the emergence of political websites, and political blogs in particular. Anyone with a point of view can get a free blog from blogger.com or wordpress.com and be online telling the world what they think about anything, anywhere, in about 10 minutes or less. Some of these new voices are surprisingly thoughtful, literate, and inspiring. Some are just idiots with cyber-megaphones. Some are on the right, some are on the left. But there's no doubt that the best of them, and some who are just louder than the others, will wield unprecedented influence going into the 2008 presidential primaries and election cycle. One of the rising stars of the genre is John Amato, agent provocateur of the best-named blog of the bunch, crooksandliars.com. John, thanks for joining us this week on Mr. Media.
My pleasure, Mr. Media. What's happening?
Hey. John, you're a professional musician by trade. What prompts a man like yourself to go public with his politics?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, politics obviously influence everybody's lives, and I think sometime in each of our lives we've taken a look and see who's running for president, even if we never bothered with politics. And I was that type of person, which would sort of be on the periphery, read when I can, and it was something that interested me. But being a professional musician, obviously, I practice 4-6 hours a day and go on the road and travel and still keep abreast of things. But I got injured, and what happened was I was touring with Duran Duran, and a doctor crippled me. We won't get into what he did, but and I was unable to perform, and so I was home disabled. And that's when I started to really follow the blogs because I was able to read. And I decided, I want my voice to be heard, even if nobody reads it, because I felt that things in this country were in the wrong direction. And if for anything else, I'd be able to express myself. And that's all I wanted to really do at that time.
Was there a particular incident, a political incident, that set you off?
Well, I would say, initially there was two things. Obviously, the Iraq War was one that I felt was a dishonest war, and I felt that it was something that we should have never done, so that got my blood boiling. And as a touring musician, this might be funny to some, but when people started to protest the Dixie Chicks, and when I heard that they were burning their records and kicking them off the radio, I was playing at the time, and it sort of caused me to pause and say, wait a second. I mean, before, I grew up in the 70s where protest music and music was part of the culture. Music told the man, get out of here. We're not taking it. Music was the instrument for where, for it sort of, obviously changed society, and there was a big break in the 60s and 70s. So when I heard that people were attacking the Dixie Chicks just because they said something negative against President Bush, I really realized that there was something very wrong with the country.
Did you ever imagine a New York boy like you would be supporting a bunch of Southern chicks like them?
I never did. I like Patsy Cline. I can't tell you that I've been a big country fan, but some of the greats, I enjoyed some of the old Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard, but it was just interesting. That story just stuck with me. Obviously, I'm a musician playing, and I just could not understand. And I realized that there was people really organizing to do this. And I mean, this is America. We talk against power. It doesn't matter if it's a Democratic nominee in the White House, if it's a Republican. We all question, or at least say, what is going on? Why are they doing this? And to take us into a war by choice would seem that a lot of people might disagree on that. And for country and for people to just attack their music was, to me, insane.
Was this the first overt political act of your career, of your life?
I would say yes, as far as starting the blog. It's funny, in the 2000 election, I was really following it. I saw some of the debates. I was still, as most people know, maybe they don't, it's like I play sax and flute. I guess people think, it looks pretty easy. But if you are a professional or you take it very seriously, your life is like anything, is wrapped into it. And I would play all day, all night, listen, compose. So you're really wrapped up into that. And I did follow the 2000 election, and that was another sign when the Supreme Court voted George Bush into power. That was another instance that I said something's not wrong with the country.
I mean, something is wrong.
States' rights issue. I couldn't understand with this really weird rule that the Republicans were putting forth why they should stop the count, and just even if you don't dig into the weeds of the law and like the lawyers do. I couldn't understand why they just wouldn't recount and get it over with. I mean, and that would have been that. But it was so political in my mind at that time that, again, it raises red flags. And, as most average Americans, let's face it, they are working hard, over anybody. I mean, you have kids to feed, college books or high school books to, pens, pencils, food. And how much time does a family making, 2 salaries under $100,000 have to really be invested in what our politicians are doing? They have to pay their rent. Mm-hmm. So it was another eye-opener for me.
As a fairly regular reader of crooksandliars.com. Kooks, I know. I think, my sense is that you are a Democrat, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah, I always, it's funny, the power of the media is such that growing up as a child, or you would see the president, and you kind of just watch on TV, and you didn't even know about politics. Right? I'm big into sports, so it was like who looks cooler, or what team. So as I got older, I was a registered independent because I didn't really want to be tied down to one person or one party at the time. So it was only in 2000. When I looked at who should run the country after Clinton, should it have been Gore or Bush, and I realized that, we have a man that has already been in the White House for 8 years. The country had been very prosperous, and against a guy who basically failed at every business and was bailed out by his family and was just a governor in Texas, I couldn't see myself supporting George Bush in the 2000 election, and I just decided to register as a Democrat and vote for Gore and then root for Gore.
Interesting. And how old are you, John?
I just turned 49.
Oh, okay.
But I look younger.
And did you, we've spoken on the phone the last couple of days, and we've had some emails back and forth. My sense is that the website is all-consuming.
Yes, that's safe to say. Like anything else, I guess, I don't know if I'm a workaholic, but I do believe that if you're going to do something, you do it the best you can, and then whatever happens after that happens. And it turned out when I first started blogging, I didn't even know how to use the software, right? Because it's all new.
Right.
And so I didn't even want anybody. I had like a different name. I just put up like something on Blogspot. It was like, and I just started playing around with what would something look like if I even hit publish, because it's, again, this is all very new. It's like, how many years has it been out? How many years have people been actually publishing and posting and blogging? So it started out, okay, I'm going to start doing this, and I went a little slow, and then I still don't even know how to use the software that well. But when I finally came up with the idea of how to put video and multimedia on the website, I had a feeling that would be important. And so then I came up with the name crooksandliars.com. I was surprised to see that the domain name was available, and I bought it. And that's when I started to put in a little more time. I was still hurt, so I couldn't actively do it as much. It was just I do it for 15 minutes and go and rest for 3 hours. That's the beauty of blogging. You can do it whenever you want because you're your own boss. Now, a couple of years later, it's, when does the news ever stop?
Yeah.
You wake up and it used to be, what am I going to blog about today? Now when I wake up, it's like, can I get everything in?
How many posts do you put up per day?
On the average, I probably put anywhere between 12. I think I've had as many as 24 posts in one day.
Oh, my God. And what was the turning point? I know you said that video was a big deal. Was there one particular post that made you realize that this was really reaching a lot of people and having an impact? There were a couple of turning points, but I just realized right off the bat that this would be important. I didn't know if anybody would come to my blog. I didn't know what would happen, because anybody that... And please, everybody listen, start a blog. It's a lot of fun. But nobody goes into it thinking that you're going to be read. But I just thought that it was much more powerful, because I was reading a lot of blogs and people were quoting politicians or talking head, bobblehead guys. And I started to watch the shows, and it was so much worse when you saw them speaking these things as opposed to just reading text. So I realized that this, being a culture that's so I just call it pop culture oriented, where we're so into TV, so into movies, so into iPods, so into music, that it would make a difference. We're coming off of, as we're recording this, we're coming off of a big week where video, in essence, sank Don Imus. I mean, a lot of people have said that when he made his comment about the girls' basketball team at Rutgers, very few people actually heard or saw it on the air, but because of the video culture, it was posted, it was passed around, and when people actually saw it and heard it, that was the end for him.
I definitely believe that video blogging did play a big role in Don Imus's demise outside of his own behavior. And we can also see that with George Allen in Virginia with the macaca moment. I've been posting snippets like the one about Don Imus for 2.5 years, and it has sort of the internet has transformed into one where what you say and what you do will be documented, and you can't, hopefully something will come out of this. I don't have faith in our media that much, and I think that after a couple of weeks, I wouldn't doubt Imus getting back on radio somewhere, and I wouldn't doubt he comes back with a fury and attacks Tim Russert and everyone he thought that left him holding the bag. But video has become huge, and it is highly influential. It motivates people. It gets people active. It gets people to say, you know what, I'm going to write my congressman. I'm going to send an email. I'm going to go door to door, because again, when you see people say these things, and there also could be speeches that are inspiring, like Jim Webb gave a rebuttal to President Bush's State of the Union, and it was inspiring to many people, and people become more active by seeing something like Jim Webb's rebuttal to President Bush. So it's definitely had a huge ripple effect throughout our society, and it's kind of neat. It's kind of interesting, and it's fun, and I like to say it's for fun and for free.
Now, John, let me ask you this. In Imus's case, he came back, and he had a medium where he came back a few days later. Unfortunately, it was a few days later, and it wasn't very heartfelt, but he apologized. Now, on the web, if you apologize, does anyone hear it? I mean, have you had to backtrack on any items, any postings, anything you've regretted or that you had to go back and make a major correction on?
I haven't had anything that I would say would be a major correction. I have had a few mistakes, and you just see what people don't understand about the blogosphere. It's self-correcting because our readers, they don't want to see mistakes. They want me to be accurate. They don't tolerate. They're so frustrated with the way narratives are built and the way the media focuses on Nancy Pelosi's sweater or Hillary Clinton's dress, and they go, and so they want me to be accurate as possible. And if I put up something that's incorrect, within minutes, people will tell me this is wrong. Your headline is misleading. I mean, they because they want me to, I pride myself on being, obviously, and I think a lot of people do. It would be disingenuous to say otherwise, but, to be honest, you can disagree with my opinions, but you can't say that I cut a piece of video or put something up that that put somebody in a light that wasn't truthful. And so I must have now over 10,000 posts. And I would tell you that I've only had to make 5 or 10 corrections since I've been blogging.
Now, one of the complaints that journalists have
surprise.
against bloggers is that they don't have the ethical training, they don't have the training in fact delivery, in presentation. So that's why I was kind of curious to ask you about that. How would you defend bloggers against that charge from journalists?
Well, I mean, first, just go to my body of work. I'll take my body of work against anyone from the AP, from the Yahoo, from the Washington Post. Let's just start with the Washington Post, okay? Let's start with the ombudsman, Deborah Howell. I don't know if you remember Jack Abramoff.
Of course.
But he was a man who was, convicted and thrown in jail, and he paid money to a lot of people. And guess who got a lot of that money? Republicans. Okay? And Deborah Howell for the Washington Post wrote an article and said that Jack Abramoff gave money equally to Republicans and to Democrats, which was a flat-out lie. And it was lazy journalism. And she posted that. Now, don't get me, I believe it was over the weekend. Now, she's supposed to be the one checking the paper for mistakes. And instead, if she would have just come out the next day and said, I had a factual error, that was not the case. Actually, he gave, 99% of the money to Republicans, then everyone would have said no problem. But she refused to put up a correction for 4 days, and it caused an outrage because that kind of reporting is what people object to. Clearly, Jack Abramoff was a Republican operative, and funneled thousands of dollars to people, and it was a story that the Republicans wanted to tar the Democrats with, so that it would take some of the heat off. Because if you remember, in the election in 2006, people were sick and tired of corruption in government. That was a big one. So you have Deborah Howell, the ombudsman. Terrible reporting. I could never get away with reporting that. So, as far as training, first of all, let me say this. I think journalists are so valuable to this country. We need good journalists. And not all journalists make mistakes like the Deborah Howells of the world. There are some great journalists, just like a Dana Priest, who came out and exposed the Walter Reed controversy. It's not that they're all bad or all good, but the fact is that why can't I report as well as they can? They have yet to prove that assertion, because then why are people reading my blog? I mean, it's bigger than a lot of newspapers.
Well, and John, let me ask you this. One of the things, a lot of the blogs, they simply reprint what's appeared in the mainstream press, or they just link to other things. But one of the things I think that's happened with your site is you've actually done some of your own original reporting, and you've done interviews, right?
Yes.
How did that start, and how have you come along with that?
Well, it's a lot of fun. I mean, there are some bloggers that just offer opinions, and they're quite comfortable, and it's necessary and it's important. Some people will just analyze news or talk about candidates and policy and the direction of different parties, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. I like to do reporting, and I get a kick out of making phone calls and then asking questions. I have done that a bunch of times, and people are responsive on the other end because people know crooks and liars, so they understand that my site is, in their own words, I guess you'd say, it's a credible site because it is so visible, which really shouldn't matter even if I was a smaller blogger. But I love doing interviews. I've interviewed directors, I've interviewed musicians, and I've interviewed a lot of politicians and authors of books. It's just I try to bring as much as I can to the site and to my readers. And I try to bring part of my own personality to the site. It's just not strictly political analysis or political content. I like people to know what music I like. I like people to know what books I'm reading. I like people to know what TV shows I'm watching. I think that the more they know about me, the more they can put things in context, and in return, the readers also give back to me. I mean, I posted about a jazz legend, and his name was Milt Hinton, that I studied with in Hunter College. And I just told that this man was a giant. And I must have got 15 emails from people that had been touched by Milt Hinton. And so there's this sharing of ideas. And so, again, the original reporting and the interviews, it just gives my readers more content, more reasons to come back, more reasons to say that, these guys are working hard. I mean, this is what we want people to do. We don't want them to be lazy. We don't want them to get their facts wrong. We want them to be out there and tearing up the terrain, trying to break new ground, trying to get to stories that the mainstream media will forget about. So, I mean, I was one of the first guys, actually. It's kind of it's not a big story, but since I've had medical issues, I've had some doctors that I have not liked. And so, do you remember when Rush Limbaugh got busted for having the little blue pills, and they weren't in his name? Well, I called the California Medical Board, and then I called the Florida Medical Board, and it is illegal for somebody to put a prescription in one person's name and then give that prescription to somebody else. So I wasn't going after Rush Limbaugh for having these blue pills. I was going after the doctors because that was illegal. Rush Limbaugh should get prescriptions in his own name. I mean, that's just a little story, but it's. And I got the DA on the phone down in Florida, and he was pretty embarrassed that they had to kick it to another county. But it raised awareness to the fact that doctors are not allowed to use the prescription pad like they were doing for Rush Limbaugh. It doesn't happen in Los Angeles.
Well, John, let me actually ask you. You mentioned Limbaugh, and I wanted to ask you something relative to Limbaugh, starting with Keith Olbermann. Changing the subject a little bit, but as Olbermann has caught on and attracted a bigger audience, some people think he's become nothing more than a lefty Limbaugh. How do you feel about that?
I don't agree, and there's a lot of different reasons. I think that Olbermann finally took the track of which, if there were Democrats in office and they put us in a war that was based on, let's call them what they are, lies, and they decided to be able to tap, phones, want to read our emails. They decided to torture people. They decided to put, to rendition people, send them to countries where they will be tortured. To have Abu Ghraib, the list goes on and on. To have an attorney general that's nothing more than the president's best buddy. He would be doing the same thing if it was a lefty in office. So there's been so much corruption, and I believe incompetence in his administration, that he decided to become more of an opinion maker. And he decided just to let it hang out. And I know the right doesn't like him too much because now his popularity is the #1 show on MSNBC. But he does not distort. Again, you can disagree with him. Just go and fact check him. So I think that, and if you see in our society today, how many I won't even say he's left-leaning, that's up to him to tell you, but how many people on the AM radio or on cable news do we have that are liberal?
Right.
You can't name any. I mean, let's not even talk about Fox. MSNBC, after the election, who was their first hire? Tucker Carlson, a guy that got kicked off of CNN. So it's good to have a voice out there that is critical of the administration. And I doubt if there isn't a swapping of administrations in 2008 that he will suddenly give them a pass. I mean, I know most bloggers on the left will not sit by idly if a Democrat is in power and in 2010 says, we think we have intelligence and we need to invade Turkey. Mm-hmm. That's not going to fly.
Have you reached the point of picking a candidate to support for 2008?
No, I haven't. What I'm doing, what I usually concentrate is, as far as what I believe to be smears or narratives that are untrue. So right now, I'm just letting all the candidates speak. My readers are smart enough to know who they want. If I endorse somebody, I don't know if it's going to sway anybody, but I kind of want to stay out of that. I want to just let the candidates duke it out. And but I'll keep, I'll post when Barack Obama's on, Leno, and he's funny, and if Hillary's here, or if John Edwards is there, or Richardson, or whoever else is going, and I'll give them all space, if it's warranted, because it's not. I mean, I'm my own guy, so I post what I think is relevant to people, what I think is funny, what is entertaining, or what is critical. Let's say a vote on Iraq, or a vote on war, on the budget, or this bankruptcy bill. We can go into each vote on and on. So right now, I'm staying out of picking somebody in the primary. We'll see what happens as we get closer, but I'm probably not going to endorse anybody. My readers are smart enough to make up their own mind.
The campaigns have obviously gotten very internet savvy. They're raising a lot of money that way. Have any of the campaigns reached out to you, either to give you news items or to try to get your support?
They don't. See, this is what they're doing very smartly, is that they've reached out to certain different types of bloggers that know that you can't, to try to sway a blogger, if he is worth his, if he has any self-decency or dignity, you just can't do it. And so there's a friend, he's actually a friend of mine. We've become friends through the internet, but his name is Peter Dow, and he runs the internet for Hillary Clinton's campaign. We used to do a lot of little, email chats here and there. He's off the list now because he's now not a blogger anymore. He's a political operative. So, they are being very smart, and they know that they cannot curry favor with us. But they all, from all candidates, they send out press releases. They send out, well, this is, Barack's position, or this is John Edwards' position on this. Let's say it's stem cells, or this is, like I said, Hillary or Richardson or Biden, or even Chris Dodd's people. They make information available. They tell us they have websites set up, and if they want to make a statement, a bunch of people made a statement about I miss John Kerry. They're all welcome to, but it doesn't mean we will use anything. Okay.
And are there any Democrats that you don't support?
As far as in what fashion, for the presidency?
In any fashion, at any national level.
Oh well, there's a lot of Democrats. I mean, that I am not thrilled with. I won't go through all of their. A bunch of them are in the House, and they're these so-called blue dog Democrats. where, there's a website called, I think, progressivepunch.com or .org, and you can see every vote that a House member and a senator has taken. So you can track their record. No more is it a secret. They're like, okay, you've elected these people. What are they doing? You can actually see their voting records. And the people who want to continue funding the war endlessly, or who have voted with Republicans more than Democrats on key issues, those are people that I won't support. And we let them know. If you read my blog, there was, you will see occasionally where I'll see Steny Hoyer, who's now the new, the majority leader, and he was not very clear the other day on his stance on the Iraq War and what he felt our next move was. So I will say I didn't get that, Steny Hoyer.
Are there any Republicans in national office that you admire or support?
Let's see. I've been working so hard with dealing with the corruption with this administration. There haven't been, if you've noticed, everything's changed since '06. And for whatever reason, the Republican Party decided to give Bush a rubber stamp for all these years. And they would not, they're so disappointing because you would think John McCain was supposed to be this maverick. And then he let Bush kiss him on the head during the '04 election, where Bush's team spread rumors that he was fathering illegitimate black babies. And I couldn't understand, how could a man be smeared like that and then turn around and say, well, that's the way it goes. I don't know. I believe in forgiveness, but that's just, almost criminal in my mind. And then when you had John Warner, who seems to be very respectable, when they got together with this Military Commissions Act and now allowed torture and started taking away the rights of counsel to prisoners, to me that's a violation of the Constitution and everything that's American. So, behind the scenes, they yell a lot. Chuck Hagel screams a lot about how out of touch Dick Cheney is, and he did vote in the new budget with the Democrats. But other than that, if you look at their voting records, and that's where you'll see, the sound and the words and the fury on TV when they're yelling back and forth, you just got to wait for when they place their votes. And that's why the term rubber stamp Republican came out, because there hasn't been, now that the Democrats have come in, there's some oversight. But my God, we got, you've heard the story, $9 billion. If you saw the pictures of that much money in suitcases missing, how can there not be any hearings to find out what happened to $9 billion? So anyway, so I've been very disappointed with this crop up. A right-wing blogger that I like, this guy John Cole from West Virginia, and he blogs up Balloon Juice. He got to the point, he used to be what I would consider a Bush cultist, which was just support him because he's the president, no matter what he's doing or saying. And finally, the Republican Party broke him, and it was interesting because he's a staunch conservative, but he wanted them all kicked out in the '06 election. And because he believed that the party has been corrupted. And so it's pretty interesting. True conservatives, true people that are true to their principles, have not been happy with many from the Republican Party.
Right. Well, John, we're just about out of time. I want to ask you one more.
Yes, I do like to talk, though.
You did.
I hope you edit this down.
You did great. Now
edit this down.
We go straight through. We go straight through on Mr. Media. I got one last question.
Yeah.
Many people find that their political views become more conservative as they get older. Are you seeing any sign of that within your own beliefs?
Now, and how do you define conservative in that context?
I don't know.
I mean, what is? I find it interesting. Like, what is the center? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does anybody define what the center is? I believe that we all, through our experiences in life, we all come to just decisions and conclusions which we're comfortable with morally, what we think is the right thing to do. So that's how I've developed my convictions. So they're not changing. They're only getting stronger since I've been part of, been involved with blogging and in a political process. So I believe, I don't believe that that's the case. But then again, you need to define what conservative means, or what the middle means, or what the left or the right. I mean, you have what I consider the extreme Christian right. And on my site, I write a lot about the religious, the extreme Christians. And I mean, I'm a Catholic, and my sister is a born-again Christian. But I don't knock the people. I knock their leaders because there's so much money being made. I mean, to not want to have stem cell research to me is insane. And so or to stop, the Plan B pill. For what reason? This will save, they're against abortion, and here's a pill that's an incredible pill so that people won't have to make that choice, and they're against that. So, again, we have to define really, what is the center? I mean, there are right-wing bloggers that try to say they're center-right as a way to confuse journalists and confuse listeners. But, we can all disagree and on different issues and maybe go not so much as far here as there. But again, what does that mean, the middle? That's what I want somebody to explain to me.
Well, John, thank you so much for a very entertaining and lively interview on Mr. Media this week.
It's my father, the Sicilian.
Well, we appreciate it.
Anyway, so, it was good talking to you. And, again, please cut this interview down by like 20 minutes.
Well, folks, if you'd like to keep up with Mr. Media's Friday interviews, you can subscribe to the site via email at www.mrmedia.com. You can also subscribe to the audio feed in the podcast section of iTunes. Thanks for joining us. Please come back next week for another Fridays with Mr. Media.